The Caribbean Sea, once a hotspot of unbridled piracy, was home to some of the world's most feared pirates. The late 17th and early 18th centuries witnessed a golden age of piracy, with notorious figures like Blackbeard, Calico Jack, and Charles Vane terrorizing the seas. But how did the British Navy, with its immense power and resources, manage to dismantle the pirate strongholds in the Caribbean? In this first part, we explore the origins of piracy, the British interest in the region, and the initial responses to piracy's rise in the Caribbean. The rise of piracy. The Caribbean was an ideal setting for piracy. The warm waters, numerous islands, and crucial trade routes between Europe, Africa, and the Americas made the region a hub for maritime trade. At the same time, these trade routes became prime targets for pirates. Spanish galleons loaded with gold, silver, and precious resources from the Americas were ripe for plundering, and many pirates saw this as an opportunity to strike it rich. By the late 1600s, piracy had become a dangerous and widespread problem in the Caribbean. Pirate ships operated with impunity, and pirates established their own pirate republics on islands like Tortuga and New Providence. The pirates were not just criminals. They were a network of outlaws with their own codes of conduct, creating a lawless world where the British Navy struggled to gain a foothold. British interests in the Caribbean. While piracy flourished, the British Empire had its own interests in the Caribbean. The British had already established colonies in the region, including Jamaica, Barbados, and the Bahamas. The Caribbean was essential to Britain's growing trade network, and pirates were a direct threat to this profitable venture. The British Empire recognized the need to curb piracy in order to safeguard its economic interests and preserve the stability of its Caribbean colonies. For years, the British had been focused on conflicts with Spain, France, and the Netherlands, but as piracy grew more rampant, the British government turned its attention to the Caribbean. However, the British Navy at the time was not yet fully equipped to handle the scale of piracy in the region. The British response. The first substantial British response to piracy came in the early 18th century. In 1718, Admiral Edward Vernon was appointed to the Caribbean with the goal of restoring order and dealing with piracy. Vernon, a seasoned naval officer, knew that the task ahead would not be easy. The pirates, particularly those on the island of Nassau in the Bahamas, had established fortified strongholds that made them difficult targets for the British Navy. Vernon's strategy was a mix of naval action and diplomacy. He recognized that in some cases, force would be necessary, but he also sought to make pirates surrender by offering them clemency in exchange for their cooperation. This idea of pardoning pirates who gave up their ways would become a cornerstone of British strategy in the Caribbean. The fall of pirate havens. One of the most significant actions taken by the British Navy was the attack on the pirate stronghold in Nassau. Nassau, located on New Providence Island, had become a pirate republic by 1706, where pirates, free from the rule of law, carried out their operations. The island had become a sanctuary for infamous pirates like Blackbeard and Charles Vane. For the British, regaining control of Nassau was a crucial step in weakening the pirate influence in the Caribbean. In 1718, the British Navy, led by Captain Woodes Rogers, launched a campaign to recapture Nassau. Rogers was appointed as the royal governor of the Bahamas and tasked with ridding the islands of piracy. Upon his arrival, Rogers struck a deal with many of the pirates, offering them pardons in exchange for their surrender. Many pirates, weary of their life of lawlessness, took the deal, and Nassau fell under British control without a significant battle. However, the pirates who refused to surrender, including Charles Vane, were not so easily deterred. The British Navy would have to deal with them later in more direct confrontations. The key role of Woodes Rogers. Captain Woodes Rogers was a pivotal figure in the British Navy's fight against piracy in the Caribbean. After the success of reclaiming Nassau, Rogers's efforts didn't stop there. His goal was not only to rid the Caribbean of pirates but also to restore British authority over the islands. He implemented a strict naval presence, using British ships to patrol the seas and prevent pirates from returning to their old haunts. Rogers's leadership and his ability to persuade pirates to surrender played a key role in the Navy's success. The British Navy's strategy of offering pardons to pirates who laid down their arms was instrumental in dismantling pirate havens, and many pirates, including notorious figures, took advantage of this offer. By the end of the 1710s, pirate activity in the Bahamas had largely been quelled. The British naval tactics. The success of the British Navy against piracy in the Caribbean wasn't only due to military force, it was also about strategy. British naval officers quickly realized that piracy thrived in regions where British control was weak. To effectively end piracy, they would have to establish a sustained presence in the region. Naval tactics played a significant role in defeating the pirates. The British Navy employed a combination of large warships and smaller, faster vessels that could chase down pirates and prevent them from escaping. The Navy also set up a network of watch stations and patrols, ensuring that pirates could not operate freely in the Caribbean without fear of being hunted down. The decline of pirate power. By the 1720s, the British Navy had gained significant ground against piracy in the Caribbean. While there were still pockets of pirate activity, the power of the pirates had waned. The defeat of pirate republics like Nassau, combined with the strategic naval actions taken by the British Navy, led to the gradual decline of piracy in the region. The British Navy had successfully broken the pirates' hold over the Caribbean trade routes, securing British economic interests and protecting the colonies. While piracy in the Caribbean did not completely disappear, its golden age had ended, and the British Navy had secured dominance over the seas. In the first part of our story, we explored how the British Navy, led by key figures like Admiral Vernon and Captain Woodes Rogers, began to dismantle the pirate strongholds in the Caribbean. But the pirates were far from defeated. In this second part, we dive deeper into the final confrontations with the most notorious pirates, including the capture of Blackbeard and how the British Navy's determination led to the eventual decline of piracy in the Caribbean. The rise of the pirate legend. While many pirate strongholds had been dismantled by the early 1720s, one name continued to haunt the seas: Blackbeard. Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard, was one of the most feared pirates in history. His ship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, was a terrifying sight on the open water, and his ruthless tactics made him a legend among pirates and sailors alike. For several years, Blackbeard and his crew terrorized the American colonies and the Caribbean, plundering ships and evading capture. The death of Blackbeard. Blackbeard's reign came to an end in 1718 when Lieutenant Robert Maynard, under the command of Admiral Vernon, was tasked with capturing the infamous pirate. The British Navy had finally had enough of Blackbeard's audacity. The Navy set up a trap for Blackbeard near the coast of North Carolina, where they cornered him in a dramatic battle. In a fierce naval engagement, Blackbeard was killed, his legendary life coming to a violent end. His death marked the end of one of the most feared pirate eras in history, symbolizing the triumph of the British Navy over the pirate threat in the Caribbean. The end of the pirate Golden Age. With Blackbeard's death, piracy in the Caribbean began to rapidly decline. The British Navy continued to patrol the seas, hunting down any remaining pirate ships. As piracy became less profitable and more dangerous, many pirates turned to legitimate means of trade or fled to other regions. The British Navy's unrelenting pursuit had made piracy a losing endeavor, and the days of pirate freedom were over. By the mid-1720s, piracy in the Caribbean had been largely eradicated. While a few pirates continued to operate in remote areas, the British Navy had successfully restored order to the Caribbean and secured its interests. The legacy of the British Navy. The efforts of the British Navy not only ended piracy in the Caribbean, but also helped shape the future of British colonialism in the region. With piracy out of the picture, the Caribbean became a more stable environment for British trade, and British colonies thrived under their protection. The Navy's tactics and naval superiority laid the foundation for Britain's dominance of the seas for centuries to come. The legacy of the British Navy's fight against piracy is still felt today. The stories of pirates like Blackbeard and Calico Jack continue to capture the imagination, but the true story behind the end of piracy is one of strategy, persistence, and naval expertise. The British Navy's victory marked the beginning of a new era in the Caribbean, one where law and order replaced lawlessness and the seas were once again safe for legitimate trade. The reign of piracy in the Caribbean, once seen as an unstoppable force, was brought to an end by the might of the British Navy. Through strategic thinking, relentless naval patrols, and bold action, the British Navy eradicated piracy in the Caribbean, securing British interests and shaping the region's future. While pirates may still roam the pages of history and legend, the British Navy's efforts ensure that their dominance of the seas was never to be repeated.